So welcome everybody to the new user assessments with Canvas webinar. My name is Dawn Peterson. I'm a teacher engagement manager here at the ASSISTments Foundation. I was also in my former life a math teacher for 8th graders here in Massachusetts, and I used ASSISTments as a weekly classroom tool with my own students. And along with me today is Christina Heffernan, one of the co-founders of ASSISTments, and she's going to be my chat support today.
Hello, everybody.
Say hello.
Hello.
So any questions that you have, Christina's going to be monitoring the chat, and she'll either answer your question right in the chat, or she'll bring it to my attention so I can answer for all. So the goal of today is that all participants that are with us will be able to follow what we call the 4 steps of ASSISTments using the Canvas LMS. So an overview of today, we're going to talk about an overview of ASSISTments and what the 4 steps are. As I'm going through that, I am going to give you a demo of ASSISTments using Canvas so you can actually see what that looks like. And then we'll round out today talking about some distance learning ideas. Just to get ahead of myself, the 4th step is sharing out with students. So since we're not in the classroom right now with students, this is going to be an important step. So just some etiquette for the webinar. Please leave your microphone off for the remainder of the workshop. Down here in the lower left-hand corner, I think it should be off for everyone right now. Feel free to turn your video on or leave it off. That is up to you. It's always nice to see who I'm talking to, though. And lastly, please go ahead and use that chat at any time. Let us know if you have questions, comments, troubleshooting. If you're an existing ASSISTments user and you have questions about the embedment into Canvas, please go ahead and shoot us those questions there as well. All right, before we get started, I just want to highlight some places on our website that you can go after today and get some useful resources. So I'm just going to toggle over real quick to our website. Right up at the top, let me zoom in a bit here, is our COVID-19 Response Help Center. This is where a lot of the newer resources that we have created will be found, and that's including some getting started videos on using ASSISTments. We have some student tutorial videos on getting started for students and how to answer open response questions. We have some letters that you can send home to parents explaining what the ASSISTments tool is. This is also where you probably did and will find what program offerings that we have coming up. I just want to highlight on Mondays through mid-June, we are offering drop-in help sessions on Mondays. So if you leave the webinar today and find you have some questions later on in the week, we'd love to see you there to help, again, answer questions and troubleshoot. We also have our Facebook teacher community. We'd love to get lots and lots of new users. I'm finding that we have a lot of teachers helping teachers there, which is great, sharing ideas, sharing troubleshooting, etc. And then our social media down here at the bottom. In addition to that, under how it works, we have a plethora of user resources here, getting started guides using Canvas, our question and answer sessions, those are all under here. So that is a couple great places to go. And again, those will be shared out from the presentation here that you can view afterwards. So let's go ahead and get on to the meat and potatoes of our presentation today. So let's start out with just an overview of ASSISTments, what the 4 steps are, and how these are going to connect with Canvas. I want to note here that we are in no way affiliated with Canvas. ASSISTments is a separate platform while we integrate. You may have questions that we cannot answer today. So Christina's going to put in the chat, if you do have questions specifically about Canvas, you might find their help page a little bit more helpful, but we are going to go ahead and answer any questions that, that we feel comfortable answering about the LMS. So first off, for those of you who are new ASSISTments users, ASSISTments is a free web-based tool that allows teachers to assign independent practice to students in math. Typically, we were used to assign homework, but we are not in a typical environment. And really, teachers have the capability of assigning whatever they want for students to do independently, whether it's independent classwork, independent homework. We have exit tickets, we have warm-up activities. Anything the teacher wants to collect data on is something that can be assigned through ASSISTments. Assessments does currently require either Canvas or Google Classroom. And of course, you are here today because of the Canvas integration. We offer a library of content, which I'll talk about in just a minute. And we're really designed to be an enhancement to whatever you're doing in your classroom. So if you're using a specific textbook, giving nightly homework to students, we can be a layer on top of that where you get useful data. If you're using an open educational resource like Open Up or Illustrative, again, we are a layer to add on top of whatever you're regularly doing so that students get feedback and the teachers get valuable data to drive instruction. So let's talk about these 4 steps. The first step of the 4-step process is that the teacher is going to create the assignment. Think about this in your classroom as making a worksheet, deciding what you want to assign to your students from the textbook. So step 1, create the assignment. You're going to be able to do that right through Canvas, which hopefully your students are already familiar with. Step 2 is that when the students do their work, they're going to get feedback, whether they're correct, whether they're incorrect, so that they can figure out how they're doing and they'll know their level of understanding. Step 3 is the teacher can assess class performance. A data report is generated for every assignment that's created. And of course, I'm going to show you a little bit more about these as we go through the webinar. And then step 4 is analyze answers together. The data from the reports is intended to be shared out with students so students can see where they're weak, where they're strong, where their issues are. Essentially, I think about step 4 as going over the work with your students. So again, step 1 is create. Step 2 is students do the work and get assistance. Step 3 is we get to see the data report. And step 4, analyze those answers together. So before we get into actually logging in, let's just talk a bit about what content that we have in Assessments. I notice on the sign-up sheet, we have a range from elementary school all the way through high school. So I'll speak to kind of that entire range. In our open educational resources, now just a note, these are free for all problem sets and curriculums that anyone can use. Illustrative Math has grades 6 through high school, and they're currently piloting in elementary, but we currently do not have that on Assessments yet. Open Up Resources and Utah Middle School Math is both 6 through 8 middle school. Engage New York is the largest range. We have first grade through high school in Engage New York. And I just want to note here that we are a tool that started off being a primary middle school and above tool. While we do have some content that is geared towards elementary, we find it's not as easy for students to do that independently. So they may need some support from home, from their parents, from their guardians, doing some of the activities, just interacting with the computer. We do have some textbooks available to use. Just to note that because of copyright infringement rules, we do not actually have the questions published on Assessments, but we have put in all the page numbers, all the questions, and all of the answers. So if your students do have a digital or physical copy of the textbook, you can still assign how you normally would. The students are still going to input their answers into Assessments, and they will get corrective feedback, and the teacher will still get a report. For skill builders, we do have some in-house built content, and skill builders are organized by grade level and Common Core, and they're designed to be mastery practice. Students have to get 3 in a row correct in order to show mastery. They do get produced randomly for students, so one group of students will not get the same exact problems as others, but I can see these being very useful either at the end of this school year, beginning of next school year, to gauge where your students are at, given the distance learning we're in now. All right, so let's get started. And actually, I'll pause here for a minute and see if there's any questions that have come into the chat that I can help answer before we get started on logging in and then moving on to assigning.
Nothing yet, but if anyone has anything about content, because that was a lot, definitely write it in here. And then as Dawn's doing her demo, we can have her show certain things that you might wonder
absolutely.
About. You bet.
All right, so let's start with logging in, basically getting your account. In order to use the Canvas integration with Assessments, your school district does need to have a school account with Assessments. I understand there's like a free account that you can get, teacher per teacher. It doesn't have to go through your district. But again, in order to use the integration with Assessments, your district does have to have an account. So you're going to start by going to the ASSISTments website, ASSISTments.org, pressing log in. You're going to be asked if you want to log in with Google or Canvas, and of course you're going to choose Canvas, and then you're going to type in your institution's Canvas URL or common name. Just to note, there is some back-end work that your institution or school has to do in order to get that set up. So if your Canvas admin hasn't done that yet, you might not find your common name, or you might not have your URL. We have created some support for Canvas admin. It's going to be linkable here. And of course, you'll get this slide deck afterwards. But there's also a note right here, what do I do if you can't find your name? And that's information you can send over to your Canvas admin. They're going to input some information on their end, and it should show up for you, the teachers. Once you are all set and you've got in with your institution's login, you're going to be authorized to connect your ASSISTments account with Canvas. You're going to press authorize. The very first time that you log in, you're going to press create new account. At this point, you will not be asked for any additional information. That's basically just generating your account with ASSISTments, and then you're in. So let me go ahead and show you what this is going to look like from the start, and then we'll go back and just see if there are any questions. Again, I noticed in the registration information that there may be a couple admins out there, so maybe there's some questions about that, and we'd be happy to answer that. So I'm going to go over here to log in on the main page. And let's see, I'm already logged in, of course, so I'm going to go log out and show you what that looks like. So again, here we go at assistments.org. I'm going to press log in right in the upper right hand corner. I get to choose. I'm going to choose Canvas. My institution name is WPI, so there we go. You may have something copy and pastable from your district, or if there is a common name, you can type that right in. And I'm going to log in. And there we go. I'm going to log in with those credentials, and I am in. There we go. And Canvas is going to ask us to authorize many times when we're assigning, when we're logging in students as well for security reasons. So if you see that kind of a lot, that's a Canvas function. So I know I'm logged in at this point because I'm going to see my name in the upper right-hand corner. We're also going to be able to bookmark at this point. I'll show you when we get to the assigning process what that looks like. And you'll also notice that we have a triple line up here on the left with an Explore Content and Bookmarks bar. So again, if I go back out to assistments.org, that's kind of my starting point, but I know I'm logged in because I saw my name there. All right, any questions that anyone can think of at this point, either about logging in, about content, about anything that we've chatted about so far?
Nothing yet. I think everyone's just soaking it all in.
So we will get going. I know we do have some experienced ASSISTments people in the room, so maybe that's why we're not seeing any questions. So let's start with step one, create assignments. Now this is super quick and easy. You're going to start at assistments.org and you're going to click on Explore Content up on the top bar. That's going to bring you to all of the content that we have for you to assign from. You're basically going to click through the folders until you find the lesson that you want to assign from. And I'm going to show you this live as well. So if I go a little bit fast through these slides, just know that you will get the copy after the webinar. So you're going to be able to choose what you want to assign. You'll be asked to authorize again, like I said, many authorizations. You're going to have the option to import all of your Canvas classes. You can assign to one class, many classes. You'll have a couple choices here, assign date, release date, etc. I'll go through these in the demo. And then it's going to push right out live to Canvas. So again, I know that might have been a little bit quick, but let me show you that right inside the tool. So I'm going to start by clicking on Explore Content. And again, we have our open educational resources here. Even if you're not tied to one of these curriculums, this may be a great place to go to find just an extra bank of questions. They're organized fairly easily by grade level, by module or unit. So again, just a great place to go to find more questions if you're looking for them. Here's 4 of our textbook providers for middle school, but you can click here to see all. And then again, here's our skill builders. I just want to show you what those look like real quick. They're organized by grade, by common core strands. So if you are looking for something specific for students to practice, here's what they're going to look like. You can assign all of this problem set, but again, the students are only going to get enough so they get 3 in a row correct. So again, a nice just kind of skills practice piece that we have. So I'm just going to go back over here to explore content. One other thing I just want to highlight is we do have some release date test questions. We're here in Massachusetts, like I said, so we have from grade 3 all the way through the 10th grade MCAS test. MCAS is the Massachusetts test. So you can go through there and kind of pick and choose, again, another question bank that you can look through and assign these types of problems out to students in preparation for next year's test prep. So for today's demo, I am going to go into illustrative mathematics, and I'm going to look at grade 7. I mentioned bookmarking, so I just want to show you how that works. Now that I'm logged in, I can go to the right of a particular folder. Let's say I'm going to be assigning from Unit 2 for the next few weeks. I may want to bookmark this. I can change the bookmark name if I want to. And then rather than clicking through folders, I can just go up to my bookmarks here and I can find that folder right away. So just a nice thing that we have available. So I'm going to go into practice problems and lesson 2. And like I said, once you get to the point where you're in the lesson, now you're going to start the assigning process. So I have the option to assign all problems or just a selection of the problems. There's a lot of questions in this bank, so maybe I'm feeling like I want to give my students a break because they're all at home social distancing right now. So I'm just going to choose those 2 problems and choose assign to, oh, no, I'm sorry, I'm not assigning to Google Classroom. We're doing Canvas today, aren't we? Assign to Canvas. Again, the first time you log in, you're going to press import, and then you're going to be prompted to import the classes that you have already existing in Canvas. I've already done that, so I'm going to assign to Miss Peterson's demo class. I have the option to choose a different assignment name. This might be a little long for some of your students, so maybe I'll call that Tuesday homework. It is Tuesday, isn't it? Or is it Wednesday? It's Wednesday. I lose track of time. There we go. Wednesday homework. I can set a release date or a due date, but those are completely optional. If I do not set a release date, that's going to get pushed out right away. So I'm going to click assign here. And again, it's asking me to log in again, I think because I logged out at some point, but let me just go through this process again. Authorize as always, many, many times. And I get the message that the assignment is successfully created. So I know that that is now in my Canvas account. So I'm going to pause there for a minute. I will show you what it looks like in the Canvas account. But Christina, are any questions coming up about the assigning process?
Yes, so I think you were right. We have some experienced users. Emily asked whether she could have her students doing work with Google Classroom. It sounds like Emily's already using Google, and then switch over to Canvas and what that would entail for her and her students.
Yeah, so I'll tell you right now that the student experience is super easy, and that's what I'm going to go into next. Students are going to go through their LMS to access their ASSISTments assignment. So if you tell your students to go to Google Classroom, they just click on some links and they're in. If they go to Canvas, it's going to be the same experience. And again, I'll show you that in just a minute. They're going to click into Canvas, click on the link, and then they're good. The data will not carry over. So if you're using Google Classroom and then you switch over to Canvas, everything the students have already done will still exist in the old account. Everything that you assign in Canvas from this point on will exist in the Canvas account.
Yeah, I think I hadn't even thought about this use case, but basically Emily is going to be making, and all of our students, they will have 2 accounts because both of them use single sign-on. One is an account with single sign-on through Google, and the other account will be single sign-on through Canvas. So they are 2 separate accounts because as far as you, teacher, with your Google, are a completely different person to us as you, teacher, from your Canvas. So I think that's actually probably a relief. Nothing's going to get mixed up. You can go back and forth all you want, and it won't scramble.
Right. And I don't think the students would even notice the difference because the students are just kind of clicking the assignment that you give them and then pressing authorize, and they get the same assignment regardless of which LMS they're using.
Yeah.
Anything else coming up, Christina?
Nolani was wondering whether we have a cheat sheet, and I think the answer is yes, and you'll probably show that again where we can access some of these steps at our website and at the end, as well as this video and some other videos are available.
Yeah.
So yes.
All right.
You don't have to memorize everything that Dawn's saying.
Yeah. Yeah, and we are creating, over the summer, one of our projects is creating a lot more supports to be ready for the beginning of next school year. So yes, I will definitely show you and highlight where those are towards the end of the webinar. So you have a good process of where to go once you leave this. All right, so step 2, let's talk about what the student experience is going to look like. So first off, in Canvas, the student is going to log into their Canvas account, and if their home is not already the assignments, they're going to click on their assignments tab, and they're going to see all the assignments, ASSISTments assignments, or other listed on their assignments tab. When they open the assignment, they're going to see a link within, that's our ASSISTments link, and they get the directions, click the following link to complete the assignment in ASSISTments. When they click on that link, just like you are the first time, the students are going to be prompted to press a create new account button. They will not be asked for any additional information at this point. They're going to go through the same authorization process that you did when you logged in, and then they're going to be brought to the assignment. So I'm going to show you this live, but just a couple of things. The student is going to see one question at a time. So they're not going to see this in like worksheet format. They're not going to see 10 problems all at once. They're going to see one question at a time. They'll get corrective feedback as they go. I'll just shut the window here as cars are driving by. Sorry, everyone. So corrective feedback as they go. So they're going to have an understanding of how they're doing on their homework as they do it, opposed to the old-fashioned way where they had to wait until they got to school the next day to know how they did, or even checking the answers in the back of the book. So everything is happening in live time. The feedback that the students are going to get is correct. So if they did it correct on the first attempt, they get that messaging, and their progress bar stays at 100%. I just want to note here that the progress bar is not necessarily a grade for the student. It is not intended to be a grade for the student. It's basically just a tracker so the student and the teacher can see how many attempts it took the student in order to arrive at the correct answer. So 100% would indicate the student got it right on the first try. If the student doesn't get it right on the first try, they get the messaging, sorry, try again, that's not correct. The students have unlimited number of attempts to answer correctly, but they have 3 attempts until their progress bar goes down to 0. We figure after 3 attempts, they're probably struggling a bit and they may need to get some support. But you can see here, they got it wrong on the first try. If they get it correct on the second try, their progress bar would stay at 67. And some of you may have noticed that there is a show answer button, and no, you cannot turn that off. And the reason why is because a student can't move on with the problem set until they've correctly answered the question. So if a student is really struggling and has no idea how to answer a question, the only way they can proceed with the assignment is by pressing show answer. So it's going to tell them the right answer, they can plug it in and move on. Their progress bar is going to go right down to 0, and I assure you it's going to be very obvious on the data report who had to press that button, so you can take it up with that student individually. Some of you might be thinking, I have a whole bunch of students in my class who are just going to press show answer because it's the easy way out. And we'll talk about some ways to deal with that if you think that may be an issue. When the student is done with their assignment, a student report is automatically going to be populated where they get to see what their score is. And notice again, I'm saying score and not grade because this is very formative and this is not intended to be a grade, just kind of tracking how the student's doing. And they also get to see how their classmates did, so the average of the entire class. And in addition, if there were hints built in that problem, the student and the teacher will get to see how many hints were used. So let's go ahead and go live, and I will show you what the student experience looks like. So just to note that if you or your students aren't sure how to get into Canvas, I imagine most institutions have some kind of link on their website that students click. Christina's going to share out in the chat. This is another way that you can access your Canvas account by going to instructure.com. This is the Canvas website. Search for your school. And when you search for your school, you'll be automatically prompted to log in with your school credentials. And that will bring you, voila, to your Canvas page. So just a moment before we get into the student perspective, I just want to show you what the teacher perspective looks like, because we did go through the assigning process. And I just want to show you here what the teacher is going to see after they assign. So I'm in my teacher account. I'm going to click on assignments here. And note that these are the Wednesday homework is the homework that I just assigned. And all the details that you type in here, you can add separate instructions for students. You can link in different videos. Whatever you do normally with Canvas, you can do now after you've assigned the ASSISTments assignment. So I'm just going to go over where I play the student. So I am a student in Mr. Story's class. So here's what the student experience is going to look like. So again, if the student's home isn't automatically their assignments, I'm going to click on the assignments tab. This is what's been assigned to me from my teacher. It looks awfully repetitive, but I will go ahead and go into one. So as a student, I click on that assignment. I get to see any instructions, due date, and whatnot that my teacher gave me, and I'm going to click on that link. I will be prompted to log in about 100 times every time you do this, because Canvas is very secure.
So Dawn?
Yeah?
When you're going through the this next phase where you're showing the answers, there was 2 questions about the answer field that came up during your slides. One is, do the assignments account for multiple answers? For example, 1/2 equals 0.5 equals even 50%.
Yeah.
And then do they have answers in particular ways to receive that credit? So that's just sort of queuing up that piece about the answers that go in the box.
And I'll speak a bit about that now, that we have multiple different question types in ASSISTments. So as we build content, there's different types. For example, multiple choice, of course. There's select all that apply. There's some question types that we call the number answer type, in which case anything that's equivalent to that answer will also be accepted. So notice here on this question, the instructions are given, type your answer as a fraction or a decimal. If it's a decimal, round to the 10th. So that indicates to the student they could put the fraction in. So if the answer is 1/2, they could also put 2/4. They could put 0.5, 0.5. With that said, for certain grade levels, let's say you're in a grade and you really need to see if the students understand equivalent fractions. And the question is, reduce 10/20ths. And the only acceptable answer you want is 1/2. We also have a question type that is exact fraction. So depending on the nature of the question, I think most times I would say equivalent answers will be accepted, because I think for most teachers that's okay. But for certain types of questions, only one specific answer is accepted. So for this one right here, I'm going to answer the fraction version of this question, and that's correct. If I had put 6/14, which I don't know why I would at this point, but that would also be marked correct. And then, of course, the decimal version. So the student gets that corrective feedback. They're at 100% over here on the right. And now we move on to the next problem. So for this particular problem, we have the same directions, which indicates to the student, fraction or decimal, it's still going to be marked correct either way. Maybe I didn't read carefully and I had 1/7 as my answer. So again, the progress bar goes down. I didn't really answer or read the question carefully again. I had a lot of 8th grade students who wouldn't read directions, so maybe I'm one of those students. Progress bar goes down to 33%. Again, which indicates I have incorrectly answered twice. So now I'll get it right on the 3rd attempt. So I'm stuck at 33%, which again is not the grade, but just the score to indicate how long it took. And now I can move on to the next problem. All the student work is also recorded here on the left, so the student can track how they did. All right, so now I'm gonna play that student who either didn't bother to read the question or they're sitting with their parents at home and they have absolutely no idea what they're doing. This is why we have the show answer button. So the show answer button tells me the answer. Now I can move on. Note that 0% on the progress bar, which basically is telling the student and the teacher, you need a little support here, and now I can move on. I don't know if you can see it plain and clear over here, but we see a red X with a yellow background. That's going to be very obvious on the assignment report. The yellow background stands out, and that's a student who has had to press show answer. So the last question I'm answering here is an open response question, and most of the curriculums that we have built have a lot of show or explain your answer, draw a model, draw a picture, things of that sort. So the student can certainly type their answer in here. They have some different kind of features here. We have some math tools, exponents, subtext, table, but most of the questions require the student to upload a picture. So I'm going to show you how to do that here. If a student has the picture of their work that they took on their phone, on their Chromebook, on take a screenshot of doing the picture on a paint pad, they can upload it like so. And we do have a support video that I showed you on the COVID help page. I'll show you at the end as well, that instructs students how to do this. Now the student has input their work. Because this is an open response question, the student's not getting immediate feedback, but the teacher will have the option to go in and score student work and leave feedback for them. So I have finished, so now I get to see that student report. Just once again, the student gets to see how they did up against the class. We didn't use any hints on this particular problem set. And the student can review the problems over here on the left just by hovering over that ID code. So that is the student experience. Any questions about what the student sees? I just want to note the student did not need to go to ASSISTments.org. The student just went to their Canvas account to find what they needed. Any questions coming up, Christina?
Nope, I think you got it.
All right, fabulous. So we will continue on to step 3, which is assessing class performance. So this is where the teachers get excited because the teachers get to see all the data, how their students are doing. And I've said this a few times, especially now that we're all at home without our students, we need a way to track how they're doing. So to locate the student data, you're going to go right into your Canvas account. And like I showed you before, all of the assignments you assign are going to be right under your Assignments tab. That makes sense. You're also going to see that ASSISTments link within the assignment. When the student clicked on this link, they were brought to the student view or the student tutor. When the teacher clicks on this link, they get to see the assignment report with all the data in it. So let's just talk a little bit about this because I'd rather show you live and I can scroll up and down and show you all the different features. But on this report, you're going to get to see the average score for the whole class. I've anonymized the names over here, but we get to see each student and how they performed. We get to see each question and how each question performed. And one of my favorite features is the common wrong answers. If there was a common wrong answer that students gave for that question, that will be highlighted so you can share that with students. We get to see how much time the students spent. And I just want to note that students do have the ability to click in to the assignment, record number 1 and 2, go have their supper, and then come back. And everything that they do will be saved automatically. Let's talk about the symbols that we see within this report, because those, just like I mentioned when we were looking at the student report, these are telling the story about how quick it took the student to get successful. If we see a green check mark, and that's going to be matched with a 100%, that tells us that the student got it right on the first try. If we see a green X, that tells me that a student got it right on the second or third try. But wearing my teacher hat, I think, well, if they got it right on their own, I don't really need to worry about that student because they figured out what their mistake was. Now, if I see a red X, that tells me the student got this right on their own attempt, but it took them more than 3 tries. So maybe they had to access their parents or guardians, an older sibling, watch a video. This starts to get a little worrisome to me when I see the red X. And then the yellow background, let me just go back to the next slide. Hopefully that was one of the first things you noticed when you looked at the report. That indicates a student who had to press show answer. So let's go live and we'll kind of take a little bit more of a glance at that. And we'll talk about how to deal with those yellow backgrounds as well. So I'm going to go back over here and go into my teacher account, Ms. Peterson's demo class. And to access the data, I'm going to click on the assignment and I'm going to click on the link. And you guessed it, guys, you're going to approve your account once again because Canvas likes to be very secure. And now we're into the report. So this tells me that Keith Story did his whole assignment. I can see he did very well. I'll show you in a minute how we would grade the essay scoring. And again, I can see how much time he spent. This is not a very good report for the sake of conversation. So I'm just going to open up this fully populated report so we can play around with a couple features. So once again, we can see the average score for the class. Right up here at the top, I recommend using this button, show and hide student names. If you're going to share the data on the report with administration, with parents, with students, make sure you hide the student name so we're not sharing out student data. If the teacher says, oh, 52%, that's really not great. I don't know what question I assigned. That was last week. If you need to see what the question is, you can press on this problem ID. And that's going to open up a new screen in student view. And of course, I'm not logged in. So anyway, when you click on that and you're logged in successfully, that will open up the question in student view so you can see what that question looked like and what the student experienced with that question. Again, we get to see the common wrong answers. And just to clarify, this tells me that 42% of the students who got this wrong said the answer was 9. So that opens up some great conversation about why did students get 9 and what was their misconception. And we'll talk a little later about how you can kind of engage students with distance learning and using common wrong answers. We can see the correct answers. We can sort the columns, which is a nice feature if you wanted to see who didn't do their work yet. This is the open circle with the 0%. That indicates the student has not yet clicked into the assignment and done anything. If we see a percent, that means the student has finished this assignment. And then the half circle indicates the student started but has not finished the assignment. So we can sort and kind of figure out which students were very successful, which students might need a little bit of support. You can sort by how much time they spent. If you want to see if there's any students who took a insanely short amount of time to do their homework, and you may want to reach out to them individually. And let's get on to, I'll pause for a minute and then we'll talk about how to leave feedback in essay scoring. Christina, anything coming into the chat about the reports?
Nope.
Okay, great. Please give us questions.
Yeah, we like questions.
Anything that comes up to troubleshoot with you.
Put me to work.
Yeah, so if you do have any questions that are open response questions or open essay scoring, you might just want to scroll up and down and kind of gauge student understanding based on what you see. Some of the curriculums, like I said, have a lot of these, so you might assign a problem set that has 6 open response questions, and you don't actually want to score them. You're just kind of absorbing what the students are writing. But if you want to, you can go into essay scoring. I think this is a lot more valuable now that we're not seeing the students daily. You have the option to score on a 4-point scale the student's response and leave them a little bit of feedback right here. This is going to save automatically. So if I leave a score, let me just show you what that looks like. If I say, you have a 1, notice it said, oh, that student hasn't done anything, so it's given me an error message. So let's say I want to change that to a 2. I see that it's automatically saving, and I'm leaving a response, and the student's going to be able to access that on their end. I'll show you where in just a minute. You can also custom sort and order these. So for example, if you wanted to highlight some exemplars for student and share that out with Canvas, you can order these so that these 2 maybe will show up at the top, and maybe just take a screenshot. If we were in the classroom, we would be projecting this on the smartboard, talking about different types of answers, what answers are missing, which ones are great and awesome. But since we're not there, this is one way that you can still share out these exemplars or needs work responses using the custom sort feature. So like I said, the student is going to have access to your essay scoring feedback. And let me just go back into my student account. I keep getting kicked out here. I got too many tabs open. And I'll show you where that is. There is no automatic message that is going to get sent to students when they do their, when you leave feedback. So you will need to go into the comments section and notify students that you left them feedback. I left you feedback, I gave you a score for this. I want you to click back into the assignment that you already completed, and of course authorize. And then the student is going to see their feedback. Let's see. Oh, I'm sorry. I clicked into the wrong one. But they'll see their feedback right here. It's going to be highlighted in blue. And whatever feedback you left from them for the assignment is going to show up right here. All right. So that takes us through the, I'm sorry. I have one more thing on the report and then we'll ask questions. So I promised many times that I would talk to you about these yellow backgrounds. So let's use this student right here as an example. This student has a 30%, not so hot, and they asked for the answer to be displayed 3 times. 6 minutes if they took them on this assignment, which seems like about an average amount for the total group, not too bad. So I'm either going to assess that this student is really struggling or they just got happy with that show answer button. So if you click on the triple dot next to the student's name, we have a couple more options here. We can look at a details report. And that details report is essentially going to give you a play-by-play for each student. So I'm going to look at this, and after about 4 minutes, the student answered 0.43. Then after another 3.5 minutes, they put 0.42, another 12 seconds, they answered their original answer, and then they press show answer. So we can see everything that the student did. And if I determine that this student was really just struggling, maybe I'll send them through Canvas a video I want them to watch or some kind of support. And then you as the teacher get to choose, do I want to leave it at that? Or do I want to delete progress and have the student redo this assignment? So again, delete progress, which is on the triple dot next to the student's name, will clear all of the answers. And when the student clicks back in, they'll basically be doing the problem set again. It's the same as if you took a student's worksheet, took the junky one and gave them a fresh worksheet back to try again. So that's a nice feature, dealing with students who are either having trouble getting started with ASSISTments, who are taking advantage of the system and doing the whole problem set in 30 seconds, or a student who's really struggling. So that is the reports. If there are any questions, I'd love to hear them at this time. And then we're going to take it into the final section of the webinar, which is basically talking about some getting started and distance learning ideas.
There's no new questions.
Christina, you have an easy job today. All right. So again, please give us your questions. We'd love to help you out if you're stuck on anything or just have some troubleshooting you want to go through. So let's go through step 4. So step 4, in the classroom, which hopefully we will be back into the classroom sooner than later. This is where we suggest sharing that report out with students, whether you are teaching an elementary grade level or high school. The more you get students used to looking at data, the more they're going to turn into mini little data scientists and understand percents and tables a lot better. So we would recommend finding common wrong answers, regrouping students, doing written work, whatever you would normally do in your classroom when you're reviewing homework and data with your students. So how do we do this when we're not in the classroom? One suggestion is send the class or even individual students feedback based on the data. So if you notice that looking at that assignment report on your own, you notice there's a question that performed 10%, very low, you might send out a message to students saying, hey, everyone had a lot of trouble on this. Here's some information I want you to know. Here's a video that you could watch. Here's a slide deck that I want you to review to go over. Or even getting in touch with individual students who are really struggling or doing awesome. Those students who are doing amazing want that feedback as well. Another suggestion is share the assignment report with students any way you can. Again, we're not in the classroom to do this all together as a group, but you could take an anonymized screenshot and share it out with students, ask them to notice and wonder about the data that's on that report. Or if you're doing video calls with your students, this could be the first 5 minutes of your video call, reviewing the content on the report, which is essentially just going over the homework. Where are students struggling? Where are they doing great? And lastly, use the common wrong answers to engage students. What I would love to do in my class when I saw a common wrong answer, and by the way, I could always guess what the common wrong answer was going to be even before I saw the data on the report, is I would have students write a short paragraph or write a letter to someone who didn't get the correct answer and explain what they did wrong and how to do it correctly. This could be a written activity. This could be a do the problem the wrong way and then circle the mistake and do it the right way. But I think there's a lot of ways. I'm sure all the teachers in the group are thinking of different ways that they could use these common misconceptions to engage students. And just a couple ways to get started, suggestions. Let the students know you're there monitoring and helping. I think students are used to, in this digital world, just typing answers into some kind of website or some kind of program and never getting feedback. ASSISTments is intended to be used in these 4 steps. So the teacher assigns, the students do it, but step 4 is always the teacher loops back around and lets the students know how they're doing. So I think that's important even in a distance learning environment. I mentioned a couple times for this next tip is make sure that you're looking at ASSISTments as a scoring guideline and not a grading guideline. Think about how you normally grade your homework regularly in class and think about how that's going to adapt to ASSISTments. We're not a grading tool. That's not why we were created, but we are here as formative instruction. And I mention this because students and parents, I think, might get very anxiety ridden when they see a 60% on the report and they're not used to seeing that. So any way you can communicate your scoring guidelines, whether this is completion based or not graded at all, I think is important right at the start. Know that it's going to take a little bit of time for you and your students to get comfortable. And I'm actually going to go over to the website just for a minute to show you something. Once you're logged in and you go to explore content, we have actually created a kind of silly little problem set that just helps students get started with ASSISTments. So down at the bottom, I clicked on getting started. And of course, here's all the curriculum that we talked about at the beginning. Down at the bottom, there's a getting started with students folder, and there's one single problem set in there. So this problem set is a great way to introduce students or get started with the year with ASSISTments. It basically just the students have to read the directions. It's asking them to get it right, see what kind of feedback they get it wrong, they notice what kind of feedback they get. It's just kind of a little playground with ASSISTments so they know what they're seeing, how they're being scored. And it's kind of a little way for them to play around with it before it's kind of a high stakes assignment that their math teacher is giving them. So again, that's under explore content and then getting started with students. And then lastly, be proactive about reaching out to students who are gaming the system or taking too little time. Like I said before, I think students are used to just plugging things into the computer and then wiping their hands off and saying, I'm done. But you should be there looking at their work and then taking it full circle, like I said, with the 4 steps and letting them know what you're looking at on the report. All right, so just one last time, we have all of our useful resources on our website. Under how it works, we have our user resources page. We have a blog that has a lot of tips and tricks and opportunities for new ASSISTments users. Our Facebook community, I hope to see you there to share ideas, ask questions, and engage with our team. And then our social media, of course. Oh, excuse me. Contact@assistments.org is where you can always email us to get some additional help. Christina and I are two of the team on the other end there, so we're happy to help you get started. So we will wrap it up here. Any final questions that we can help answer about using assessments with Canvas or just the assessments tool in general?
And we have a small group, so if somebody wants to unmute themselves and ask a question, they probably can too.
Yeah.
But we're getting some thank yous. So there you go.
Yeah, and
Thank
just
you for coming, everyone.
One final reminder that we do have, let me go to the last slide here. There's our email and then the Canvas support page. And I will be following up at some point this evening with the slide deck that we went through today, the video that you can certainly share out with any of your colleagues that are also using Canvas. And that'll be this evening. And our help session is on Monday at 2 o'clock. Eastern Standard Time. So if you do run into any issues, we'd love to see you there. And that is a Zoom call as well. All right, so have a wonderful day, everyone. If you are all set and you don't have any further questions, you can exit out of the Zoom call. I'm going to stop the recording here now so you don't get to.
Oh, wait a second. We've got one question. So, Radhika, do